think we start a linguistic section now. And as I have only 20 minutes, I hope everybody of you has his handout where I summarized the most, not all, but most important literature and the most important witnesses of this Middle Egyptian dialect. So, as I am also an Egyptologist, you know, the Egyptologist has always problems with the term Middle Egyptian, because this is the language of the Middle Kingdom Egypt that every student learns firstly in Egyptology. So there was also a proposal to call it Mesokemic or Oxyrhynchus. And Oxyrhynchus has much to do with the geographical localization of this dialect. But let's make first a survey. The Mesokemic, let me term it Mesokemic dialect, is maybe the most recent discovered dialect among the Coptic dialects, and the differentiation of dialects, including the Mesokemic, is gaining ground. You can say thanks to Rodolphe Cassin, or some would say also.
No handout, I think. Everyone's asking for
So I'm sorry, we had 45 yesterday made, or was it less? Yeah. So maybe we can make more copies then after. I'm sorry. So I will start with the two persons we owe most of the discovery and the investigation on this Mesokemic dialect. These are Paul Kahle, who identified the dialect as Middle Egyptian from fragments found among the finds of the monastery of Der Balaisa, and Hans Martin Schenke, who untimely died in 2002, to whom I would devote this contribution. I will also write it for the proceedings, who mostly published on this Mesokemic dialect. And he summarized in the Coptic Encyclopedia in 1991, Mesokemic is one of the relatively minor Coptic idioms and probably flourished only briefly in the early period of the Coptic language, 4th and 5th centuries, but nevertheless developed in this period into a highly standardized written dialect. So, and the good, and let's say also the breathtaking thing about this Mesokemic is that it keeps surprising us with new textual witnesses. You see here a picture of the 2001 published by Hans Martin Schenke Gospel of Matthew text from the Storian collection. We don't know exactly where the papyri come from. In the handout for those who have it it was together with some early Greek papyri, also biblical texts, and among also a Mesokemic witness of Josiah, still unpublished. I'm even not sure if this papyrus is still in the Storian collection. So Hans Martin Schenke already mentioned the pages of Josiah, and to point at the importance of this witness, this is one of the earliest biblical texts, not only Coptic but also Greek biblical texts, because this is dated to the early 4th century. But let's make a survey to know the features of this Mesokemic dialect. So Gaudat knows this text very well. I'm sorry that I couldn't find a better photograph. There is a publication by Casser showing some photographs, but not available to me.
You didn't contact me.
Yeah, I could have. Sorry. We can make it better for the publication. So the famous Modil Psalter, published in 1995 by Gaudat Gabra, and termed by Rodolphe Casser as dialect M4. And here a complete codex, again the Gospel of Matthew, published by Hans Martin Schenke of the 5th century in 1981. It's a wonderful manuscript as of the classical early text verses of the Coptic Bible, and the Codex Glasia containing parts of the Acts, and also dated to the 5th century, also published 10 years after the Matthew Gospel by Hans Martin Schenke. And that we don't drop this fact, as we know today, Mesokemic is well documented also by here, not in unical handwriting text, but also documentary text and semi-literary text. And you see here an example published by Alcock in Korea 11 in 1982. Here is, so to say, the first explanation of this new dialect by Kahle in his publication of Der Balaiza, and he is numbering the witnesses, and among this, what is really important to understand, to more or less confine the geographical situation of this dialect, we have to be attentive to the fact that we have texts from Wadi Sagna, that means from a region south of Asyut, and we have text, the Mudil Psalm comes from a village north of Al-Hiba, that means even further north than Oxyrhynchus. And as we have always had new witnesses in the last years, so the geographical scale of Mesokemic is even widening more than people in the end of the 70s, when the first witnesses, larger witnesses became known, could surmise. So he also, Kahle mentioned among the Wadi Saga texts some biblical witnesses, Oxyrhynchus papyrus, a manuscript in the collection of Hoskins is still unpublished, and Jews and Christians, a publication by Crum, and the famous Greek Coptic glossary of Hosea and Amos, was published in the Journal of Egyptian Archaeology. And this is only to show you that there is still much to do to investigate in this dialect. But something about its character. So we will survey now the particularities of this dialect. First, among the dialects of Coptic, Mesokemic has the same alphabet as Sahidic. So that means no special letter for the H phonemes like Mohiric or Mimic, and no other early Coptic sign as, for example, the Book of Proverbs or dialect P or PEC, Proto-Sahidic, this famous Bodmer 6 manuscript. Here, according to Rodolphe Casser, we have not even all dialects he discerns. The picture is getting more and more complicated, but I highlighted here for you the classic. We can already speak of classical Mesokemic, that means M4 and M5, and if you compare it, here we have adverbs, some nouns. It comes close to these dialects termed by Casser in between Fayumic and Middle Egyptian, that is W and U, and also to the Fayumic dialects proper. So our Gospel of Matthew from the Stone collection has a special special term by Casser, C like kata Mesokemic, so something in German we would say nieder Mesokemisch, for those who understand this. I don't know how to put it rightly in English. And this version of Mesokemic shows special features. So you could also say this is an earlier version, less standardized than the three main manuscripts we have, the Gospel of Matthew from Skyve, the Acts from Glacier, the Modil Psalter, and also the Pauline Epistes in the Papyrus of Milano. So if we go on here, again, Mesokemic, classical Mesokemic shares many features with Fayumic and these crypto-Mesokemic or Meso-dialects between Fayumic and Middle Egyptian. And as we see, especially concerning the vowels, it's not like Bohairic and Sahidic. We have the Ren instead of Ran in Sahidic and Bohairic, because like all the other so-called smaller dialects. So the EA change is also in Mesokemic, and our kata Mesokemic shows also some special features, especially the eta as unstressed final vowel of a word. This is a special feature of this C by Casser. And also the most striking feature making everybody aware about a text written Mesokemic is the omicron as stressed open syllabus vowel instead of omega in all other dialects. So this rule breaks again in the Kata Mesokemic Gospel of Matthew from the Skorian collection. So there we have omega, as you see on the right side, rome, and also in the verb sotum, there we have again omega, whereas the Middle Egyptian, classical Middle Egyptian, or the later texts show the omicron in this place. So this may be the most striking and obvious feature of this Mesokemic dialect. So to give other examples for verbs and nouns, and you can compare yourself that here again the Kata Mesokemic has features of its own. Also a striking feature, and Casser even determined PC dialect among the Gospel of Matthew from the Skorian collection. In some features, of course, this text is not using Janja, Kima at all, and Kima, sorry, I was wrong. It's not using Gima, instead uses Kappa or Janja. So this is a feature it shares, for example, with the B7, with the F7 dialect, this early Fayumic text from the Papyrus Hambo, Bilinguus 1. So in the first attempts to describe and differentiate this Mesokemic dialect, Hans Martin Schenke, and at the same time in a volume of Encoria dedicated to a conference in 1978, Jürgen Osing tried to describe more or less the historical and geographical position of Mesokemic. So, and Osing just before in 1976 published this magical papyrus from Oxyrhynchus, a text written in Coptic characters, using also these old Coptic or pre-Coptic signs from Demotic, not yet standardized as in Coptic proper. But this is a text phonetically on the level of Coptic, but grammatically it shows a text of classical Egyptian or Égyptien de tradition. That means the Middle Egyptian as learned language by the pagan priests of this period. So this is not a contemporary text of Coptic. It is a text that pretends to be Old Egyptian. So it makes grammatically it very difficult to compare the text, but it is true, Osing did it also. Phonetically, you can compare the phonemes used in this text to the Coptic dialect, and this is what he did. Oh, sorry, I jumped one. In this table, we have no time to go into details here, but he came to the conclusion, Osing, that talking of Oxyrhynchus, that this text and his phonology shares only some parts, and especially the Omicron preference, with the Middle Egyptian or Mesokemic dialect. So, but he said it is highly improbable that if the Middle Egyptian text, we have no reference to the place where they came from. That means our main witnesses of Middle Egyptian or Mesokemic. If this text shares so few phonetical features, then the Middle Egyptian couldn't be at least proved to have come from Oxyrhynchus. So we have now, that was at 87, much more witnesses, but let us come also to the conjugation system. It was well presented by Wolf-Peter Funk in 1981. That means before the Modil Psalter was published and before the Skurian Papyrus was published. And we see that this may be a very striking feature of Mesokemic, that it has even a very well standardized and differentiated conjugation system. So we have for perfect half sotem, and that means in this paradigma it is possible to discern between the second present and the perfect, and the second perfect and the first perfect. So it is even more differentiated than the Zahidic and Bohairic in this respect. The close conjugations don't show many particular features. And one also striking particularity is among the relative conversions, the third plural conversion at se, whereas in all the other dialects normally at tu. And this is also a feature that makes Mesokemic very well recognizable. So put in a scheme as Polotsky did in his famous Coptic conjugation system, we can now see how well distinguishable the Middle Egyptian conjugation system is. So you have almost no homonymic basis that could be mistaken. So for example, the second tenses, you see, this second tense perfect, echav and achav, also makes, according to Kasser, a difference between M4 and M5. There's only a feature at the margin of this phenomena. So as you see, in this respect, Mesokemic is really a well-differentiated literal language dialect, and we have mostly biblical witnesses of this dialect. And at some time in the 4th and 5th century, there must have been a concentrated attempt to translate the Bible, or at least a number of books of the Bible, into Mesokemic. So if we will hear from Eva then about Lycopotalian, there we have not a few, but many Manichaean, Gnostic and other texts, that means heretic texts, and Mesokemic is well orthodox, as it seems to us. I agree, of course. There are some letters showing Middle Egyptian featured from the Meletian community in Wadi Saga. So the picture is not round yet. So, not to expand the thing here, we can't go into all these details. Something about the geographical localization of Mesokemic as we know it now, to come also to a conclusion. So we have wonderful biblical texts, we have documentary texts, as you can read in the handout, we have literary and semi-literary texts, so the whole scale of literature we can expect. And unfortunately, after the passing of Hans Martin Schenke, nobody systematically took up again to make an investigation of the whole Mesokemic material. And Kassa is announcing since years in the our newsletter of the International Association, I mentioned it in the handout for those who don't have it yet, étude comparée des dialectes coptes de la Moyenne en Égypte et du Fayoum. And we are desperately waiting for this, but I'm not sure if he is able to do this. But this is exactly what we need. So we have to take into account again this glossary for Amos and the other Wadi Saga texts, and I talked to Elizabeth O'Connor already that there is still unpublished material. So then we have a scale here, so I have no possibility to point here on it. Well, Carle believed that this dialect is to be located around Oxyrhynchus, but we have with the Mudil Psalter already a text from the north of Oxyrhynchus. So we have a contact phenomenon in direction to the Fayoum, and we have texts not pure Middle Egyptian, but mixed Middle Egyptian Sahidic texts from this Meletian community in Wadi Saga. So that means further south from our region where we are now, the Moharak. So also the geographical feature of Mesokemic is still to be defined. So, and then we have to take into consideration also the side-by-side existence of Middle Egyptian, Sahidic, maybe Bohairic and Fayumic in direction to the north, and Lycodispolitan to the south. So I put here at the side the last geographical model by Funk and Casser from 1991, or this is not exactly from this time, it's a little bit before, but it was published in the Coptic Encyclopedia, and here you see how they wanted to show the distribution of dialects. I think this is already outdated with the new material we got, and if we take into consideration more closely the Meletian documents and the other documentary texts, then the feature will be more precise in the future. And so I hope maybe someone else will do in the future. So thank you very much for your attention. I hope I could at least show some special features of this metal cabinet. Thank you.
Thank you very much. And we have 5 minutes for questions. That is very complicated to have questions.
It is Just a very small question. Madrid, you mentioned in your comparison from hieroglyphic to Coptic Sigil and the Sultan. What do you mean by now it is Omega? You mean that it could be an Omicron instead of Omega? Or
No, the
Sigil and the Sultan?
there's nothing to do with all the Egyptians.
No, okay.
Coptic is stressed vowel in an open syllabus is normally omega. From ancient Egyptian, mostly A, alpha, stressed vowel A, and Middle Egyptian uses omicron instead. So if you see a text where Sotem...
You mean Middle Egyptian and hieroglyphic?
No, I mean Coptic.
Okay.
On the synchronic level of Coptic.
Yeah.
Yeah. Only in the
Yes.
So normally you have Sotem with omega in
Yes.
all Coptic dialects. Sometimes in Acmenic you have Sotmer.
Okay, I'm sorry.
Yeah. The main stressed syllabus is omega, and if you see Sotem in a normal three-partite scheme with omicron, then it is Middle Egyptian. So you could immediately say it.
Okay.
Another question, please.
Yes, I have a question. Well, looking at your maps in the very end, and with due respect, of course, for the work of Kale and Kasser, doesn't these maps show that we start to have, that we have to start thinking about dialects in a different way than we are, say, used to do so in a common sense way? In village X they have this dialect, next village they have a different dialect, and next third village they have another dialect. That we start to have to think in a different way about dialects. And I'm a bit but I don't want to take away what my wife is going to say in a few minutes. We should perhaps start to think about dialects in a different way than simply along purely geographical lines.
Exactly. Yeah. I can only agree with you.
Okay.
I didn't want to say it, but that's the point. In my
Yeah, well, I think that's the main conclusion I get from your paper.
So it is not possible to fix a village where this
No.
kata, Mesokemic or whatever was written, and we need another model for this.